This podcast is part of the Planet Broadcasting Network.
Visit planetbroadcasting.com for more podcasts from our great mates.
Hello and welcome to Book Cheat, the book club podcast where I've read the book so you don't have to. My name is Dave Warnicky. On each episode of this show, we look at one of the classics. And on each episode, I give two special guests a cheat book to that classic. So by the end of this episode, both you and they will be able to pretend you've read it. Lending me their ears today from the fantastic Don't You Know Who I Am podcast, it's Josh Earl.
Good afternoon or good evening or good morning whenever you listen to this. Thanks for having me, Dave.
Thank you so much for coming here. And Josh is joined today by one of my absolute favourite stand-up comedians and one of my favourite guests on Josh Earl's podcast. It's Laura Dunneman.
Yeah. Hello, Dave. Hello, Josh.
Hello, Laura. All right, now today we are reading an American classic. Well, I'm going to give you the cheat book to it. John Steinbeck's Of Mice and Men. Now, I did ask you before the show, but neither of you have read this book.
No, I've not read it. I have seen the film starring John Malkovich.
And you were mixed reviews on John's portrayal.
Look, I just think, I don't know what to say about it on air. I think he's too committed to the role.
Sure.
Tone it back a bit, John. Not John. Tone it back a bit. Yeah, John Malkovich, yeah.
Yeah, his name is John.
Yeah.
You don't. It's like one of those famous people that you forget that their name is just a regular name.
It's just John.
Oh no, it's John. If I met him, I would call him John.
Like John Malkovich's performance in the movie Rounders. Have you seen that?
No.
He's got an amazing accent that you just think on the first day that must have been, really? You're really going to go with this for the whole movie? All right, okay, you're John Malkovich.
Really?
We'll let you do it, yeah.
I do love John Malkovich. I love him in he's really scary in The Line of Fire.
Yep.
With Clint Eastwood. Have you seen that?
He's a great psychopath.
Oh, he's such a good psychopath. Yeah.
Just looks dead in the eyes.
He's
a lot
got
of the time.
dead eyes.
Yeah, it's just like, whoa.
Yeah. But then I just wonder what he's like in his personal life.
I reckon intense. I
Like
reckon a lot of
imagine
actors.
John Malkovich in the shower.
Yeah.
Does he sing? Does he write on the wall?
He's just got dead eyes in the shower.
Yeah.
Just staring off, shampooing a bullshit.
I'm not sure if he's a method actor or not, but that always makes me go, nah, you're an idiot. If
Who's
you're
the guy that's the big time method?
Daniel Day-Lewis.
Daniel Day-Lewis. Yeah,
Pretend
that's
to be
right.
Abraham Lincoln for a year. I'm like, come on,
And
mate.
won't wear
Like,
modern
yeah.
clothing and gets
Yeah.
pneumonia and things like that. It's
Yeah.
like, really?
Yeah.
I mean, he's won Oscars.
Yeah, 3, more than
also-
anyone else. So
But also, it is bullshit.
Yeah, he's wasted a whole year pretending it was like
Live your life.
1812. Like, just...
Yeah.
yeah, it's a lot of commitment. But then you hear about him in My Left Foot, his first Oscar-winning role.
Yeah.
And he asked to be carried around the set.
Yeah.
Did he?
Yeah. So he didn't use his left foot. But then I'm wondering, at home, he's married
Yeah.
to Arthur Miller's daughter, which is
Really?
very crazy. Because then he was in The Crucible, the film, based on his wife's father's play. But maybe that is how they met, possibly. But yeah, what's he like at home?
Yeah.
Is he
Yeah.
pretending to be Abraham Lincoln at the dinner table?
Yeah, when he goes home after a day's
And
filming.
also, you're just playing pretend, mate. Like,
Yeah.
it's you're acting. There's
Yeah.
people putting makeup on you
And it
every
can't-
morning.
yes,
you
you know-
can't be like...
It can't be that real because there's a director yelling, cut,
Yeah.
stop. Sorry, someone walked in the background. Can we start again? You can't just be like, stop what?
Yeah, there's someone-
I'm just talking.
Well, if he's really pretending to be Abe Lincoln, he's going, why is that guy holding a stick with a microphone on it? What is a microphone?
Yeah, exactly.
Like,
He'd
just
be
constantly-
questioning everything.
What?
He would be like Hugh Jackman's character in that romantic comedy film where he comes from the past and he's confused about modern life.
Kate and Leopold.
Yeah, that's what he would be like. He'd be like, what is this microphone? What is this? Like, he'd be really confused all the time.
I would have went with Encino Man as my reference.
Encino Man. That's a better reference. Oh, dear. Yeah. Anyway.
Of Mice and Men.
Of Mice and Men. So it's quite a short read. It's a novella, technically. Not quite a novel.
Oh.
But I enjoyed this. So I'm going to ask you to review it at the end of this.
Yep.
Review out of 5. Just a bit of historical context. Of Mice and Men was written by American author John Steinbeck and originally published in 1937. It is one of Steinbeck's most famous works now, alongside East of Eden and The Grapes of Wrath. There is 2 more famous full-length novels. The title of Mice and Men is taken from Scottish poet Robbie Burns' poem To a Mouse, which reads, "The best laid schemes, oh, mice and men, Gang Aftagly, which translates as the best laid schemes of mice and men often go awry. And as you can see, there are some laid schemes in this book. So let's get into it. Chapter 1. Now, the book opens with two men walking towards a beautiful riverbed in 1930s Outback, California. Dressed in denim, these working men...
hello.
I know. You're thinking, a bit of Justin Timberlake.
Who would play them? Oh, well, there's a film already, so
I
we
think
don't
there's a
need
few
to.
films, though,
right?
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, there are a few, but the most recent one is the John Malkovich. And I'll tell you which character John Malkovich is, and you'll know what Josh means about overcommitting. These two men are our main characters, George Milton and Lenny Smalls. Lenny Smalls is John
like that.
Malkovich. An ironic name because Lenny is a huge man. George, on the other hand, is much smaller, but he is the leader of the two. George and Lenny set up camp after a long 4-mile walk. The big guy, Lenny, has to ask George to remind him where they are going, and it becomes obvious to the reader that Lenny has a mild mental impairment and has real trouble remembering things.
Okay, so I think I'm getting what you mean by John Malkovich going a bit too far.
Yep.
Yeah,
Okay.
maybe a little too hard.
Yep.
I haven't seen the film, but I'm
As
imagining.
Robert Downey Jr. said in Tropic Thunder, you're not going to win an Oscar like that.
To paraphrase.
Yes.
So Lenny's asking, what are we doing, George? I'm sorry, I've forgotten. And the language is great. It's sort of 1930s uneducated American. They're from California, but, you imagine people from the South talking, and that's how it's written out like that. So you
George, what are we doing out here?
exactly, and it's written out that exact way.
in the desert?
Even
Does
when
that
you're
look like that?
when you're reading it, you're like, I can get the language.
Yeah. Bit of a drawl, a bit of a southern drawl.
Yeah, a bit of a drawl. George tells him in his own drawl that they're going to work at a nearby farming ranch and tells Lenny that he must be on his best behaviour when they meet their new boss. He also tells Lenny that when they meet their new boss, Lenny should just stay silent and shut up and let George do all the talking to avoid getting them into trouble. And while speaking, George notices Lenny is a bit distracted. He's playing with something in his pocket. Well, he makes Lenny hand it over whatever he's playing with. It turns out to be a dead mouse.
Ew.
Just playing with it in his pocket. Lenny claims, I didn't kill it, but I found it and I like the feel of the mouse's fur. He just likes rubbing his hand along it. George cracks it and throws the mouse across the stream so Lenny can't play with it anymore. But moments later, when he asks Lenny to go get some firewood, he disappears into the night and George hears him dive into the stream. Obviously, to find the dead mouse. He really wants it back.
Where is this book going?
No.
Foreshadowing.
Foreshadowing. When he returns to the campsite, George again confiscates the mouse and throws it away.
So he found it.
Yeah, he gets the mouse.
That's a pretty good effort.
It's a pretty, in the dark.
Yeah.
Instead of needle in a haystack, mouse in a river.
Yeah, it's a mouse in a river. That thing's going downstream.
And George is like, "What did you think? I wouldn't know what you're doing. You're all wet." Lenny then remembers that during his childhood, his aunt Clara used to give him mice to play with, but eventually stopped because he kept accidentally killing them. So basically, he's a big sweet guy who really doesn't know his own strength, and this repeatedly
he's
gets
got a
him
heavy
into trouble.
touch.
Yeah,
Yeah.
He's got a heavy touch with marsupials.
and it gets him into trouble a lot.
Right. He's got big, bulky hands and he doesn't know how to use them.
It's got big, meaty digits.
Big, meaty digits. Pork fingers.
Well, they sit down to have some beans on the campfire, and Lenny asks for ketchup to go with his dinner, despite knowing that there isn't any. And George cracks it. He lectures Lenny about being ungrateful and complains about the trouble that Lenny causes him and that his life would be easier if he just left his friend behind.
Are we still in chapter 1?
Still in chapter 1. There's a lot of setup in the first one. It's revealed that they were chased out of town, in the last town they worked in, a place called Weed, because Lenny touched a young girl's dress. He was fascinated by the fabric, and even when she screamed, he wouldn't let her go. This caused them to be chased out of town because the locals thought he was some sort of predator, and they were lucky to escape without being killed. So basically, George is telling Lenny, you get me into lots of trouble. So
Sounds like Lenny's very tactile.
Yeah.
he's sort of I guess he's kind of a gentle giant, but then also he accidentally kills things a lot.
In the 2018
Yeah.
remake, Lenny's going to have a fidget spinner. And
Yes.
everything's going to be fine.
Just give him a fidget spinner.
That's all he needs.
Put a bit of mouse fur on top of it, and he's good for a day.
He just loves stroking fabric.
I like how they get into the backstory early, though, because I was wondering,
You're like,
what are they doing?
why are these two?
Why is this
Misfits.
grown man?
Do we need to
walking
know
around?
any of the historical context of the time? Is that relevant?
Well, back at the time, so they're sort of travelling migrant
And this is
workers. They're referred
pre-war.
to as pre-Second World War. And the travelling migrant workers, so basically they travel from ranch or farm to farm. Usually they keep to themselves. So it's actually mentioned many times in the book that it's strange that these two grown men stick together because everyone else is basically a loner.
Usually lone rangers.
Yeah, totally.
And I haven't figured out if this is a comedy or a drama yet.
It ain't no comedy.
Right, okay. It's going to go dark.
It's going to go full dark. I should say that.
Just the comic part of it with the mouse, finding the mouse, and there was
the
a bit
dead
of
mouse.
there's a bit of an Arnold Schwarzenegger, Danny DeVito dynamic
Twins.
from Twins.
Was that maybe the John Malkovich was going too much for the twins vibe? Oh, I'm just a lovable dumb guy. Anyway, so George gets angry about the sauce. He yells at him, but then he feels remorse for his outburst because Lenny starts crying and apologising and offers to leave and go and live in a cave on his own.
Oh,
So
remorse for
George-
the sauce.
Remorse for the sauce.
We've got to get a hashtag going for that. So Lenny's very upset now. So George calms him down by retelling him their master plan.
Ooh,
It's another frequent part of the book. To work hard together and then one day own their own farm where they're their own bosses and where they can, quote, live off the fat of the land.
land. Yeah.
That's Lenny keeps saying that. Unlike all the other workers, as I said, who are loners, these two will stick together and make a life together. Lenny's heard the story many times and is very excited, particularly about one day owning furry rabbits
See, tactile again.
Yeah.
He likes the fur.
that he'll get to look after. That's all he cares about. He keeps talking about the rabbits.
Yeah, he
Rabbits.
probably might kill the rabbits, though, with those strong, porky hands of his.
His poor fingers. Keep them away.
Like, a tiny little rabbit probably can't handle that.
Send him out to Australia where the rabbits went wild. And
Yeah, true. Yeah,
gets,
he could,
There's
he
millions
could
of
really
them.
help
Don't worry
with the
about
feral
them.
rabbit
Yeah.
problem.
Help a farmer out. Just grab a rabbit. But this story and the dream really cheers up both men. And before they go to sleep, George tells Lenny to remember the area that they're currently camping in. And if any trouble goes down like it did back in Weed, Lenny should hide here and wait for George to come and get him. He makes Lenny repeat the emergency plan over and over again to make sure he remembers. So that is our opening chapter.
Okay.
How are you feeling?
I'm very clear on what Lenny's doing there. Lenny is a bit of a lost soul. He needs somebody to guide him through life. I'm still stuck on George's motivation and George's backstory. Does George have a dark past that's forced him into this life on the land, or is he enjoying having a power play and almost having a pet in Lenny?
Or
That's
is
my
he-
question.
Or does he just have a very good heart and goes, this person needs help and no one else is going to help him, so I can help him?
No, I don't think it's that. Yeah, because he gets so easily frustrated with him, and he seems a bit self-focused.
What if I told you that it's a combination of all three of those things?
Great. Okay. My instincts are correct.
Yes, totally. And we'll discover a bit more about George as we go through. So the second chapter...
If I wonder if one of these two characters are going to die by the end, I'm going to guess Lenny's going to die.
What's your money on that?
What about you? Oh, you know.
I've seen the film.
Yeah, okay.
You've seen John Malkovich. It's a
Yeah.
fantastic role. I wonder if he wasn't nominated for an Oscar or anything.
I don't think he was for this one.
It sounds like this is the
It's
role.
not too hard.
You'd get the role because it's very famous, especially in America.
Yep.
You'd be like, I can play this character, and it's Oscar bait kind of
Yeah.
thing.
Oh,
Like-
that is full Oscar bait.
Like Billy Bob Thornton in Sling Blade as well. Didn't get the Oscar. Have you seen Sling Blade?
Yeah, and he also wrote and directed that though.
Yeah.
is-
Some people call it Gaza Blade. I call it Sling Blade. That's how he talks in it. It's really good.
So the next morning, the two men arrive for work on the ranch. They go to the fairly bleak bunkhouse where they'll be sleeping during their employment. There they meet Old Man Candy, who was a one-handed...
Played by John Candy.
No, Old Man Candy is the one-handed handyman that works on the farm.
Oh, how did he lose his hand?
Lost his hand in a farming accident, and they've kept him on. But throughout the book, he is worried that he will soon be fired
Because he's
because
only
he's,
got one hand.
he's got one hand and he's quite old as well. So he lives there.
I will only picture this man as John Candy.
A one-handed John Candy. He's accompanied by his ancient dog, a very, very old sheepdog. George and Lenny then meet the owner of the ranch, who was annoyed that they are very late. They said they were supposed to come the day before. George bluffs and says a bus driver dropped them further away than he said that he would. Really, they wanted to have one more night camping so they didn't have to work the long weekend.
Good bluff. Yeah.
They wanted to start with a bit of a rest.
I'd do that one. I'd pull that move.
But weren't they walking there? So this is 1937, so there's no phones to call them up and say, hey,
No.
we're going to be here this day. So you've written a letter.
So probably sent a letter ahead of them, and then they did get dropped off by a bus,
Yeah.
and then they were going to walk
okay.
to the ranch. But I think he said that the driver gave us a bit of a bum steer and said it was only, a short walk, but it was ages. Basically, they don't want to wait the long weekend. The boss asked them about their history, and George tries to speak for Lenny, but then Lenny forgets their plan and starts speaking, and George starts to become really nervous. The farm owner finds this suspicious and asks George why he's looking out for the big guy. Again, most of the travelling farmers travel alone, so he's like, what's going on here? And he says, are you speaking for this guy because you're keeping some of his money? Are you using him? And he's like, no, George tells the boss that Lenny is his cousin and was kicked in the head by a horse when he was young, so George has to look out for him. This is actually a lie, but he just says that to sort of impress the boss. And whilst the boss is still a bit suspicious, he warns George not to try anything smart with him before they are assigned to a team on the farm, baling hay.
George is just trying to do a good thing, helping someone else who has a bit of a learning disability, and now he's in trouble for it.
Yeah, and everyone's like, there's got to be something here. Is this for money? Yeah. Everyone's sus of it. I suppose it just really just shows how...
I'm a bit sus on George.
But I guess it just shows how nearly every other character is just a loner.
Yeah.
That's true. It's a lonely place out there in California.
It sounds like a very, very horrible place to live.
Lone Rangers out in the West.
I think I know why you were thinking of Arnold Schwarzenegger, because he was the governor of California. And so you were
Yes.
And I mean, Danny DeVito is always on my mind.
Yes.
Naturally.
Always. Now it's time to meet our antagonist. They meet the owners.
Hang on, the antagonist is the villain, isn't
Yeah.
it?
So
Okay.
we're about to meet the villain.
Do we think Lenny is the protagonist?
I think the protagonist is not necessarily the hero,
George and
but just the
Lenny?
person who propels the story along.
Right, okay.
And the story is told by sort of a narrator,
Right.
an unnamed narrator.
George and Lenny went to the shops.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Then they drank milk.
Then Lenny killed a mouse.
Then they drank more milk. Lenny asked for sauce. So we meet the owner's son. This is the antagonist. His name is Curly.
Some good names in the book.
He's a bad boy.
Great names.
There's many of them that begin with C. Okay, well, there's a few more.
Candy, Curly, yep. Are there any women in this book?
There is one.
It's called Of Mice and Men, not Of Mice and Men and Some Women.
There's definitely more mice and men than women in the whole book.
I mean, the title is accurate.
There was a young girl who thought she got assaulted. Is that the character?
Yes.
Yeah.
So
She
women,
doesn't speak naturally.
the good news is that women do exist in this world.
Okay.
It's not some dystopian
Okay.
man and mice. Every mice for himself. So they meet Curly. He's an angry ex-boxer who suffers from real small man syndrome. For absolutely no reason, he immediately tries to start a beef with Lenny, seeing him as a big guy. He wants to prove
Oh,
himself.
it's like prison. Go up to the biggest
gotta
guy
go
you
to the
can
biggest
and
guy.
go, I'm
Yeah.
going to take you down so people respect me.
And when George tries to speak for Lenny, Curly demands that he let the big guy talk. Lenny doesn't want to talk to him. Curly eventually leaves, and George tells Lenny to watch himself around Curly because if they fight the boss's son, then they'll definitely get fired. Lenny says he doesn't like this place and wants to leave, but George reminds him of their dream and that to own their farm one day, they must work hard and lay low for a while. So it sort of calms Lenny down a bit. They then briefly meet the only woman in the book, Curly's wife, who the old man Candy says is a, quote, a bit of a tart.
Oh.
Let's not put labels on.
Hey, Candy,
Don't slut shame. What's her
Yeah.
name again?
she's never named.
Oh,
Hello.
Referred to as Curly's wife throughout the whole book, which I thought was very...
Wow.
I was reading
this
it
is Curly.
I was go-
The
it's like-
old Mrs. the ball and chain.
I'm sure that was a choice to make, but
It's got to have been.
because I'm reading it through and I was like, why are they still referring to her as Curly's wife? Very strange.
Can we make a guess?
Oh, what do you reckon? So he's Curly, she's
Anita.
Anita.
Anita, yeah, or Karen.
If year 12s or final school kids are listening to this, they're going to start writing Anita in the exam. Yeah, so I thought Anita was really like, she represented like the good and bad.
I only say that because I was talking to someone called Anita today. That's all.
I like it. We're going to go with it.
All right.
Well, she's called a tart by Candy. She does flirt with some of the men. And Lenny comments to George that this woman is very pretty. But she does not impress George, who sees her as poison. And yet another reason...
As all women are.
The way he immediately goes straight to poison, it does feel a bit like he's had some issues with women in the past. And he sees her as a reason that they might get into a fight or get fired from their jobs again. And all he wants to do is make the money. So he tells Lenny to stay away from Curly and stay away from Curly's wife, Anita. Finally, for this...
Anita Curly.
Please. Anita Curly was my mother's name. Very strange that I married a man with the same last name as me. Finally, for this chapter, Slim.
Who's Slim?
He's the head rancher.
Is he Curly's dad?
No.
No. So he's
The head rancher.
He's basically the one that's in charge. And when they go out working, he's the lead man.
It's like in the film City Slickers. He's the old guy who at the Oscars did the one-arm push-up. That guy.
That's
Curly.
That was Curly.
Curly's
his name
gold.
In City Slickers his name was Curly.
Do you reckon it was a throwback to Of Mice and Men? Do you reckon like this is like an allusion to Mice and Men? Yeah.
Yeah.
I've only just cottoned on now.
It's a very influential book.
Year
obviously.
12s, put that in. Yes. This book influenced City Slickers
These are,
and City
City
Slickers
these
Slickers.
are deep insights.
Anita did a one-arm push-up.
Yeah.
Is that what we're doing? So Slim, he's the head rancher, and he comes in to meet his two new team members. Everyone respects Slim. He's the most respected person on the farm, and he's impressed by the friendship that George and Lenny have. And
I like Slim so far.
he's the only one that seems he's impressed by it. George tells him that even though he's not very smart, Lenny is so big and strong that he can work as much as two men put together.
He'll just work and work and work all day long.
Basically he says he's a really dumb guy, but if you tell him what to do and explain how it's done, he'll
He's a workhorse.
Honestly, he's the best worker you'll ever see, which actually turns out to be very true. Slim also tells him that his dog has just given birth to 9 puppies. Great news. However, he drowned 4 of them. Bad news.
Slim drowned 4 of
Yeah,
them.
basically being like, I chose the 5 biggest, non-runts.
Yeah.
It's litter.
Oh, he's going downhill in my book quickly. He drowns puppies.
I know.
He's a puppy killer.
I know. Steinbeck's trying to make us like this guy, and he
Yes.
introduced
So
straight away as a puppy
confused about
killer.
how I should feel about different characters.
Not to keep going back to films, but in the film Snatch by Guy Ritchie, he made the evil character in that a dog fighter, like someone who fights dogs because he thought that
Makes 2 dogs fights, or actually
Yeah.
takes on a pit bull himself.
No, but you know how they had those dog fights,
And people bet on them.
People bet on it because he thought that's everyone
most
loves dogs.
unlikable
Yeah,
thing.
and so people hate him as soon as they find that out because he's going to make him a pedophile. But I thought no, people prefer
Some people
dogs
love
than kids.
pedophiles.
No, but it's like
But everyone hates dog fighters.
yeah. This is Guy Ritchie.
true.
Listeners, this is Guy Ritchie's opinion, not my opinion.
Did he do a bit of like market research and like
I'm
9
not
out of 10
sure.
people said they hate pedophiles and the 10th person's
I
like,
think
what's
the
wrong
dog
with you?
thing is emotive.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't necessarily agree with the pedophile thing, but the dog thing is very emotive. It
Yeah.
pulls on your heartstrings
Oh,
because
any film where a dog is introduced, I'm like, oh, that poor dog's going to die.
They're
I can't watch
truly-
this film.
they're truly at our mercy.
It is,
And they
I
say
agree.
that psychopaths, one of the first signs of a psychopath is that they will harm animals, which is interesting because Lenny kills mice.
And
But
Slim
I don't think
just
he's
killed
a
4
psychopath.
dogs.
Yeah. And often psychopaths are likable at the beginning.
Yeah.
So Slim announces he's got these puppies. George can see Lenny's interest in his eyes and agrees to ask on Lenny's behalf if he can have one of the new young puppies as his pet. Because Lenny likes soft
furry things.
So that's the end of the second chapter. Quick character recap, just so basically that's everyone I'm going to talk about. So we've got Lenny,
Yep.
we know him, big guy. His friend George, old man Candy with the one hand, John Candy, if you will.
Thank you.
Ex-boxer, the tough small man Curly, trying to challenge everyone.
Sorry, when you said Xboxer, I just thought console. I like
Yeah. I will play Halo against you and I will win. Then Curly's wife.
Anita
Anita.
Curly.
And then Slim, head rancher that everyone respects.
But kills puppies.
Yeah. It's supposed to be a respectable guy.
So what's the owner of the ranch's name?
I don't know if they mention his name,
okay.
or he doesn't really come back.
Do we know any other actors that were in the movie?
I
Can't remember.
can't remember.
That's
I watched
all
it so long ago. I watched it in like high school.
Yeah.
I mean, if you want to start casting this, Laura, we got
Yeah.
John Candy already. Who's Curly's
Okay,
wife?
2018
Curly's-
casting.
Okay, 2018. I'll put Curly's wife as, I'm going to say, Anne Hathaway.
Anne Hathaway.
Okay.
Good.
Yep. Curly is going to be James Franco.
Nice.
I think he could go dark.
Could be a bit of an issue trying to get him to work with female actors, but that's fine. Let's do it.
Hey, there's
Yeah,
only one
very
in this
true.
movie.
Actually,
Yeah.
I'm firing James Franco for that reason. Let me put in. Do you know who the next person that I thought of?
Who?
Not Kevin Spacey, please.
Casey Affleck, and then I was like, no, can't have Casey Affleck either. Is everyone in Hollywood a dog?
Who's left? Jack Black. He seems like a great guy.
Okay, Jack Black would actually make a great Curly.
I think he's a bit older. Maybe
Okay.
he could play an old man Candy. They sort of dress him up to make him even older.
Yeah.
Right.
Who's going to be Lenny? Big guy? Lenny. Who's the guy in the stripping film? Who's the young guy in the stripping film? What's his name?
I know who, man.
He's also in
From 21 Jump Street?
21 Jump Street as well. Magic Mike.
Magic
Oh,
Mike.
Channing Tatum.
Channing
Yes.
Tatum. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Channing Tatum.
Yeah.
Okay,
I'm
he's
not-
a
not-
Lenny.
And then-
I know he's a good-looking guy, but he also could look simple very easily.
Yeah.
He's got that kind of all-American kind of hidey-ho, how you doing kind of look to him.
He doesn't appear to have much depth.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So he's our
But
Lenny.
very big and
I
strong.
think he'd be good, or the Adam Driver, the Star Wars guy. He's a big guy too.
Yeah, and he would act it really well, and he's got that kind of loping.
Because they're both big guys.
Stance.
But I don't know who would be a good George. So he's apparently a small man.
Small man.
Smallish.
What about Edward Norton?
Oh, well, he would definitely commit to the role. He'd be great. He's great every time.
Yeah, I'm going to say Edward Norton for
Okay,
George.
so we've got Channing Tatum, Edward Norton, Old Man Candy, possibly Jack Black.
What about Slim?
I just really wanted him to be in my movie, Jack Black.
How old do you think Slim is?
Probably 40-ish.
What about? Do
So
we think he's handsome?
confident, charming, probably handsome. So you instantly think, yeah.
What about a Gyllenhaal?
Yeah. He could be George too, Jake Gyllenhaal.
Yeah, true.
So we're definitely Jake Gyllenhaal, not Maggie Gyllenhaal.
Maggie could be the tart.
All right, she's in. Sorry, Anne, you're out.
Yeah, we'll go Maggie,
Then we don't have actually a Curly yet though, do we? The bad guy,
the bad guy.
because everyone was a
be-
bad guy in real
Yeah,
life.
Bad guys in real life.
So short guy who's got a temper and
Wants to fight people.
wants to fight people. Ryan from the OC. Get him back acting again.
All right,
Yeah, Ryan from the OC.
Yeah.
That's good.
Hell
We've
yeah.
seen him throw a punch.
Yeah.
he will be credited.
Welcome to the OC, bitch.
And that was in California.
Yeah.
So it's
There you go.
perfect.
It makes
this
sense.
This is the OC, but 100 years ago.
Yeah.
That's what it is. And maybe we should rename Curly's wife to Marissa.
There you go.
Oh, so not Anita.
Yeah, I think she should be Marissa.
Okay, you can rewrite the film halfway through. You know the script.
Marissa, let's do it.
All right, she's now Marissa.
Chapter 3.
Welcome to the OC.
Did he actually say that line? I forgot.
First line, he gets punched by Ryan, I think. No,
I think,
he was Ryan.
No, I think Luke, who
Yeah.
was Marissa's boyfriend, he said, welcome to the OC, bitch.
Luke has the greatest story arc over 6 episodes I've ever seen. He starts off being the villain, and then they realise, oh, there's no depth to this. Let's just make him as if I think his dad was
His
gay.
dad was gay.
And so he just switched.
So
As
that's
soon
why
as
he
his
was a
dad,
bully.
Yeah, and as soon as it was out that his dad was gay, he just became
Then he
this
was
kind of-
delightful.
yeah, just his ex broke up with him and got with Ryan, and then he was like, all right, yeah, we'll all be friends. And then they got rid of him after one season.
Yeah, yeah. But he wasn't very good.
Nah.
Neither was any of the rest of them.
I was going to say Pacey, but it's not Pacey, it's
Seth?
Seth.
Yeah, but it's the equivalent, isn't
yeah,
it?
it's the Pacey of it. You
Yeah.
gotta say.
We should get Pacey into our film.
Yeah. Joshua
Jackson, he would play someone cool. He would make a good Slim. But
All right.
I mean, we
I
can make
actually think
multiple
I'm
films.
going to introduce one more character later on, and I reckon Joshua Jackson.
Okay, let's put him on the bench then.
Great.
I love
Don't worry,
Joshua Jackson.
You'll be in, Pacey. Come on. So at the end of their workday, George thanks Slim for giving Lenny one of the pups. So he did give Lenny a pup.
That's nice.
Slim says it's nothing. But George knows it means a lot to his friend. He's actually now worried he'll spend all night in the barn playing with the pup. And he's worried that the pup's too young and that Lenny won't know his strength again and hurt or kill the dog by accident. But he lets him play with it. George opens up to Slim about his history with Lenny. He feels like he can trust Slim more than anyone else in the bunk. He's been looking after his friend since Lenny's Aunt Clara died. Lenny is so dumb and trusting that he'll do whatever George says. And when they were younger, George used to take advantage of this and make fun of him. But then one day, to impress some people, he told Lenny to jump in a river. And when his friend, who can't swim, nearly drowned, George felt so bad, he changed his ways and started looking after the big guy. So that's his backstory.
George is growing on me.
But now Lenny knows how to swim because he got the dead mouse in
Maybe
chapter
he
1.
just waited.
Yeah, he's such a big guy. It's got to be pretty deep for him to not be above, not have his head go below the water. He also tells Slim of the story of what happened in Weed that made them have to flee their last jobs. Lenny wanted to feel the fabric of a young girl's dress, and when she screamed, he panicked and he wouldn't let go. George kept yelling and yelling at him to let go, but Lenny was just frozen. Eventually, George had to hit him over the head just to make him let go. George and Lenny then had to hide before leaving town because an angry mob formed and wanted to lynch Lenny.
I like the town of Weed. I like how staunchly they support their women.
I reckon they were more into just wanting to lynch something than supporting this woman.
Oh, this mob was just looking for something to lynch.
Yeah.
When they heard a kid scream, they were like, oh, we're on.
Here we go.
Some other towns around that time wouldn't give a crap if a woman's dress got grabbed.
True.
They'd say she's a tart.
They wouldn't
Like
even give her a
Marissa.
name.
Yeah, exactly. They wouldn't give her a name. Well, she doesn't have a name in this.
No, it's amazing. But she's now Anita / Marissa. One of the other ranchers, Carlson, this is our new character,
Josh
Joshua
Jackson.
Jackson.
JJ.
JJ badgers old man Candy, the one-armed John Candy, about his old dog, saying that it smells and being deaf and blind, he should put it out of its misery. Candy says that he can't do it because he's had the sheepdog since it was just a pup and it's been such a good dog to him. Carlson keeps badgering Candy and even offers to shoot the dog himself. Candy keeps saying no until Slim, the leader of the group, agrees that the dog should be put down and out of its misery. Before that, Candy didn't want to do that, but then sort of Slim turns the tide against that. And in one of the saddest scenes of the book, Candy very reluctantly eventually agrees and Carlson, Joshua Jackson, takes the dog out. Quite a bit of time passes in complete silence before a shot is heard. And old man Candy turns on his bunk to face the wall. It's very sad.
That's really sad. And also, Slim likes killing dogs.
Yeah, that's 5
He's got a
so
history
far.
of it.
It's 5 and he's given one to some guy who's killed a mouse. So.
Yeah, he wants to get rid of dogs.
Yeah.
Yes, dogs. Oh no. So that's a very, very sad moment.
That is sad.
And also Carlson, why he's so eager to kill this dog?
He's so eager. He keeps badgering him and like sort of bullies him into it. And, you know,
Just stay
Candy's
out of your business that isn't your own.
he keeps saying it smells and it smells in here because of that dog. You got to get rid of it. And then
Aren't they sleeping in a barn?
it's sort of like I think it's a rectangular room with a couple of windows and then there's just bunk beds everywhere. So it's pretty filthy in there
In a
anyway.
room full of men, it's going to stink.
Totally.
Yes.
Well, George freaks out when he arrives because he sees his bunk has lice powder next to it and he's like, did the last guy have lice?
Yeah.
They're like, oh, no. He was just so clean, he put that there just in case. He doesn't believe that. But yeah, it's horrible in there.
lice.
It's filthy.
It's got bed bugs.
They work all day. They don't bath.
Yeah.
Then the angry ex-boxer and son of the boss, Curly, our bad guy, comes in looking for his wife. And he hears that the cool leader of the group, Slim, has gone out to the barn. Curly is always very jealous and suspicious of everyone, and he runs out thinking that they are having an affair, and everyone leaves, hoping that they'll see a fight.
Yeah.
Everyone leaves except George, Lenny, and old man Candy, who's still very depressed on his bunk. Lenny gets George to tell him about the rabbits and the farmhouse dream again, and Candy overhears and offers to go in on the deal with the two other men.
Oh.
George is pissed off and rebuffs him at first, but Candy explains that he lost his hand in a farm accident and he got a payout, and he's got a little bit of money that he could put towards paying for the farm so they could, you know, go and move there a lot quicker.
Get them started.
Yeah, they all agree to go in on it together, but to keep the deal a secret from everyone else.
It's like Survivor.
They're forming an alliance.
Don't form an alliance on Survivor with a one-arm man. That's
Yeah, it's true. You got to go with physical strength.
yeah.
Well, Lenny, he's strong.
Yeah, that's true.
And you can
Yeah,
convince
true.
him to do whatever you want.
Yeah, outwit,
He'd be
outplay
great.
Lenny,
Yeah,
easy.
Lenny, if this was Survivor, Lenny would get taken to the final three.
Yeah,
Then
now.
he'd get booted out in the final three.
And they always do that dumb one where you got to have your arm up in the air for ages.
Yes.
And Candy's out of that one.
Are you a Survivor fan?
I love Survivor.
I love
You
Survivor
guys are
too.
big, so I want to talk about that hand up in the air because I always find that to be the most boring challenge
It
to
is.
watch.
Yeah,
There's
but-
nothing exciting about it.
But I think that they've done it so many times now. You're like, oh, this is going to be good. You can
Yeah.
see. And now they actually mic up the people who are out early, so you figure out what they're talking about.
Do you
about
know
the
what
outcome.
happened in the most recent one, right? Because they changed that challenge slightly, the one that ended not that long ago, right? Instead of having their hand up on a pole, they had to be on a pole with their legs and their arms holding on to sort of small bits that were jutting out. And they couldn't release. They were sort of like cramped up on this pole and they weren't allowed to take any of their hands or feet off the pole, right? And so they were doing it and it was down to 2 people and it was this guy who was the villain and everyone hated him and he was really sexist and horrible. But his wife was watching, right? Because the family by that point were watching them, right? And you just really wanted him to lose. And he'd started taunting the other woman to try and psych her out and being like, you know, you're going to mess this up and you're getting tired and that kind
Trash
of thing.
talking whilst
Right?
cramped on a pole.
Yeah, exactly.
Tough guy.
He was trash talking her, but you could tell that he was getting really, really tired, right? And then he had a hat on and he took his hat off, right? And his wife goes, Brian, you took your hat off like that. But he didn't realise because he'd gone crazy from being on the pole for so long. He didn't realise that taking his hat off meant that he'd taken his arm away from the pole. And she goes, Brian, you took your hat off like that. And he's like, what do you mean like that? And then Jonathan LaPaglia goes, Brian, you have taken your hat off. You have taken your arm away from the pole. That means you have lost this challenge. And he just goes like that and falls into the water. It was brilliant.
So this is Brian Lake, the footballer.
Yeah, I hated him.
And he and his wife, I think they've divorced
split up
now.
since, and I think it was because he took the hat off.
Took the hat off.
You never take the hat off.
Yeah.
It's Robert Downey Jr.'s other rule. Oh. What are you doing?
Anyway, sorry to sidetrack on
No.
Survivor.
This is
I could talk
Outwitting,
about
Outplaying.
Survivor. I could talk about Survivor all day long.
Sort of spin-off Survivor podcast. Have you considered it? Anyway, so they're talking about they've gone into this secret deal, and
They're forming their alliance.
Candy laments that he should have shot his dog himself and not let another man do it. An important moment, possibly later in the novel.
Ooh.
Foreshadowing. Then Curly comes back in apologising to Slim for accusing him of having an affair. Anyway, he knows he couldn't beat Slim in a fight and that everyone would take Slim's side because they all love him. But he sees Lenny laughing to himself about the dream of the rabbits and he thinks that the big man is laughing at him. So Curly challenges Lenny to a fight and just starts throwing punches at him.
What an idiot.
Lenny just stands there and doesn't fight back. And he just yells to George to make the man stop. He says, "Make him let me alone, George." George tells Lenny that he must fight back, and after yelling at Lenny many, many times, who's now covered in blood because he's been punched in the nose and in the eyes, George yells at him to fight back heaps and heaps, and when he finally does, without any effort at all, he grabs Curly's hand as it's about to punch him, and he just won't let go. He completely crushes Curly's hand, and Curly stands there struggling and starts crying until eventually Lenny finally lets it go. Lenny yells, I didn't want to hurt him. Curly is whisked
He
off.
just wants to hurt mice.
Yeah.
I only hate mice. And Slim's like, I killed 6 dogs.
I'm a dog killer.
They've all got their own thing they like to kill. Curly's whisked off to the doctor because every bone in his hand is absolutely crushed.
Wow.
But not before agreeing with Slim that he'll tell his father that his hand was caught in a machine and not damaged by Lenny. Curly is told that he'll be a laughing stock if the truth gets out, that a man could just easily grab his hand and make him start crying. Lenny is upset because he thinks he's blown his chance to look after the rabbits on the farm, but George assures him that he still can.
This is toxic masculinity right here.
It is
Like,
toxic
he's-
masculinity.
He's just like, Curly is just a dick
He's
who
a
wants
dick.
to throw his weight around because he thinks he's got some power.
And he's addicted to drama. Like, honestly, these men are pathetic.
They are. Toxic masculinity, I think, would be a good theme.
It would be a good title.
Yeah.
Of Mice and Men and Toxic
Of mice and masculinity.
Saturday night rolls around and everyone in the bunkhouse goes into town to party except Lenny and old man Candy. That's in the bunkhouse anyway. Lenny goes and intrudes on the black stable hand, a man named Crooks, because he sees his light on. Crooks isn't allowed to set foot in the white man's bunkhouse and has to sleep in a room on his own in the stable. He tells Lenny about the racism and exclusion he receives on the farm, basically saying, "What, you can't come into my room because I can't go into your room."
Yeah.
And tells him about all the things he's not allowed to play cards with them or do any
Double
of this
standards.
stuff. But Lenny doesn't understand any of this, and he just innocently keeps talking about rabbits. At first,
Lenny doesn't see colour.
totally. In fact, in the whole book, he's really the only non-racist one. At first, Crooks doesn't want Lenny to be around him, but eventually he kind of warms to him and invites him. I think he realizes, oh, this guy's not racist.
He's well-natured, except for killing mice.
Yes. Old man Candy comes in too. The first time in all the years he's worked on the farm that he's visited Crook's rooms. They've worked together for possibly decades, but they've never hung out before. Candy tells the stable hand Crooks about their dream to own a farm. He's not supposed to talk about the dream.
Yeah.
Promised George he wouldn't, but Candy, he's sort of bragging to Crooks about how he's
Keep
going
his mouth shut.
to get away from this place soon. Crooks doubts their dream and says it will never come true. It starts belittling them about that. But when he hears that they've got a little bit of the money required, he offers to work for them for free if it happens. So basically, everyone wants to leave this situation. Every time they see a ticket to get out of there, they immediately jump on it.
So he wants to work for George and Lenny and Candy, even though he's not met. Oh, he has met George. They've worked together on the field already. Okay.
Yeah.
I was going to say, because sometimes it's better the devil you know than the one you don't know.
That's right. No, I think they would have done
You don't want to work for a one-armed man and some guy who crushes mice and some guy you've never met.
I suppose that shows just how badly he's treated.
Yeah.
I guess. He'll take anything.
Shows his situation.
He'll take anything. Oh, by the way, he's nicknamed Crooks because he's got a crooked back because of an injury that he suffered.
Well,
They're not very
You might
nice.
not even give him a job, really. Even for free, mate.
Well, that's why he offered to work for free. Basically, get me out of here. Then Curly's wife appears out of nowhere. Anita / Marissa.
Marissa.
She really startles the guys.
Welcome to the OC, bitch.
That's her opening line. They know her violent husband Curly is suspicious of her cheating and ask her to leave them alone so they can avoid any trouble. But she stays and tells them of her dislike for her violent husband and says she is very lonely. Loneliness, another key theme of this novel. Nearly every character feels isolated. Many of them actually reach out without actually making real friendships with each other. But they always confess their loneliness.
Except George and Lenny, they have a real friendship.
They're the only two that really stick together or like each other at all. She inquires about Curly's hand injuries and knows the boys are covering something up because she notices Lenny's facial injuries. Old man Candy tells her to get out and leave them alone, and she shuts him down. He tells her about their dream to own a place and says he doesn't care what she thinks. But they end up fighting, and Crooks tells her to go, and she puts him in his place by threatening him and calling him the N-word. She pretty much, not even vaguely, implies that she could have him lynched at any moment, and he immediately retreats.
They love a lynching. They
do
love a lynching.
Love a lynching.
So
Any excuse.
Yeah.
Let's go out, have a lynching.
So if you were feeling
like,
sorry for her, that's
Don't.
her showing her true colours there. Curly's wife disappears just as the rest of the men arrive back from town. They hear them coming back. George comes in to check on Lenny, and Candy starts talking about the rabbits again, and George is annoyed that Crooks, the stable hand, now also knows their secret plan. It's gone from 2 to 3 and now 4
This
people
is
know about it.
blowing
Yeah.
way out of control.
As Candy leaves, Crooks withdraws his offer to work on their imaginary farm, yelling, "I wouldn't want to go to no place like that." Basically, he's been put in his place by Curly's wife, and now he decides he doesn't want to hang out with any of them ever again. Probably fair enough. The next day, the group of men play a game of horseshoes on their Sunday. I think it's when you throw horseshoes at a stick on the ground.
Can I just go back one
like
bit?
quoits.
Yeah,
with,
sure.
with Crooks, when this was written,
Yes,
people had very different views about black people back then.
absolutely.
Do you reckon that was meant to be, he isn't to be trusted, he turned his back so far? Like, he wouldn't have been a sympathetic character by going, I don't want to work for you anyway?
No, I think actually he is written as a sympathetic character because he does go into detail about all the racism that he receives on the farm.
Yeah.
About how he's a hard worker and he's not allowed to go into the bunkhouse at all. Horseshoes is the only game he's allowed to play with the men because it's outside and he's not even allowed to go into their farm. So I think it actually is sort of in a way showing that Lenny's the only one that isn't racist.
Yep.
And actually, Of Mice and Men, it's a very popular book for children to read or, kids to read in high school. It's also one of the most banned books, I think, because of a lot of the language and because it does use the N-word a lot.
Yeah.
But, I mean, if you didn't use the N-word and people were using it back then.
Yeah.
So it'd be kind of like brushing the racism and the history under the rug. So
Absolutely.
I think you got to keep it in there because that's
You need
what
to
happened
know
to people.
that the N-word was used.
Yeah.
Totally, yeah.
Yeah.
But some people just
Don't use it, but know that it was used.
There's also a bit of, sexual language. They go to brothels, that kind of stuff.
I'm calling Marissa a tart.
Yeah, so there's stuff like that, and I think they're like, ban the book. I don't care that it's teaching people,
But it's
moral
historic.
lessons. Yeah. But yeah, it's one of the most banned books. There you go.
Wow.
We're a pretty dangerous podcast here at Book
Yeah,
Cheat.
Maybe Mein Kampf should be on that list.
While other men play a game of horseshoes on this Sunday, as I said, Lenny sits inside the barn with his puppy, which has now died.
How?
Sorry,
Who killed the puppy?
He's been too rough and accidentally killed it.
But he's still playing with it.
He's worried George won't let him look after the rabbits now. He sits there stroking it, asking it why it had to die. Why you got to go get killed? You ain't so little as mice. I didn't bounce you hard, he says to the poor dog.
There are a lot of animals being killed in this.
It's like Milo and Otis.
It is like Milo and Otis.
Too soon.
But Milo and Otis really happened. The scene in Milo and Otis where the cat
Down
falls
the
over the waterfall.
Take 13.
So
Quiet on the set. Imagine being the owner of one of those cats too. Oh, we're going to be in the movies. Oh.
can you imagine if they chuck a cat over the waterfall and someone's phone goes off and then just this cat has died for no cat should have died. But that take was just was destroyed.
Yeah. Or just like the lighting wasn't right. All right, do it again.
Well, had to come and tell the owner, look, the cat died, but it looked really good. Can we use that vision?
The cat really committed to the role. Okay. This is fictional animals being killed, though.
That's right.
so-
Sadly, the dog has died. He's now worried that George won't let him tend to the rabbits, so he decides to hide the dog in the hay in the barn.
To be honest, I don't think he should be tending to the rabbits.
No, he really shouldn't.
Not at this point.
But
Those porky hands can't be trusted.
He realises George will know he's lying anyway. He then thinks that maybe George won't mind after all, as the pup didn't mean much to him anyway. So he gets the dog back out of the hay.
He's really going through these stages of grief really quickly.
Yeah.
Denial.
He finally accepts it and he's just like, well, it's still soft. I'll keep stroking it. Curly's wife comes in and startles Lenny, who again tries to hide the pup in the hay, but she notices it. At first, Lenny refuses to talk to her because George told him not to. He thinks talking to her will get him into trouble. But Curly's wife keeps talking and talking, explaining that all the other men are outside playing horseshoes and that it's okay to have a little chat. Eventually, he yields and she tells him of her isolation and loneliness. She wanted to be a movie star, but her mother wouldn't let her join a travelling show when it was travelling through their town. A talent scout also told her that he'd take her to Hollywood, but he never came back for her. So out of desperation, she married Curly, a man she doesn't like, let alone love. And again, Lenny mostly talks about rabbits. So he's a good listener, but then, did you understand any of that? I want to touch rabbits.
It's just one of those people waiting for their turn to speak,
Yeah,
not taking
exactly.
anything in.
I don't care anything about your problem. So what should I do? Rabbits?
Yeah.
Marissa actually sounds in a very similar emotional state to the Marissa that was on the OC. Bitter, lonely, trapped.
Reeks of someone peaking in high school.
Yeah.
I just expected everything to get better from
Everything's
there.
going to be easy,
Yeah.
and then it didn't work out, and she doesn't know what to do.
She's resting on her looks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She probably married Curly from her high school. He probably would have had it going on as well. He was a boxer at the time. Maybe had a little bit of success, but then try and get to the big leagues.
If she was in my hometown of Burnie and Tassie, she would have been working in the chemist. That's where all the good-looking girls in my high school went. They all worked at the chemist.
The chemist would have been a good job.
Yeah.
Good high school job, but you got to be pretty for it.
Yeah.
Are they still there?
I haven't been back for a while to go to the chemist when I'm back home.
We'll make that a mission. I want to know. So he talks about rabbits, and Curly's wife asks him about his obsession with rabbits, and he explains he just likes feeling soft things with his hands.
Oh, hello.
Curly's wife said...
I've got something soft.
Well, that's what she says. She says, I like that feeling too, and invites Lenny to stroke her soft hair.
Hello.
I got something soft. And he really likes it. Like, he really likes it. He likes it so much he grabs onto it really hard and won't let go.
Just like the girl
It's like
in
the girl in the
Weed.
dress. She panics and starts screaming, and Lenny also panics, covers her mouth to silence her.
Shit, this is going bad.
He panics because he can't let George hear, because then he'll stop him from looking after the rabbits. He keeps talking about the rabbits. She's sort of struggling and he's grabbing her harder. The more she struggles, the harder he grabs her, and Lenny starts shaking her until she goes limp.
Holy crap.
Lenny has accidentally broken her neck and she dies.
The worst
This
part
is really
is
dark.
because she doesn't really have a name. The tombstone's just blank, just the dates.
Curly's wife.
It says
Curly's-
Marissa Cooper.
They ask Curly, what was her name? He's like, I don't know.
I don't know. I
gonna
never
be extra.
asked.
Should I have asked?
Oh my god, this is really bad.
No. She's dead.
Lenny.
Lenny
no.
realizes he's done something very wrong and tries to hide part of her body in the hay. After some time, he reminds himself that he's got to hide in the bush near the river and wait for George. So he runs away. Candy comes into the barn looking for Lenny and discovers the body and immediately tells George. George instantly knows that Lenny must have been responsible. He wonders out loud that he hopes Lenny will just be arrested and jailed, but Candy says that surely Curly will take matters into his own hand and kill Lenny for killing his wife. Candy picks a weird moment to ask George if the farm deal is still on the table. So is that farm?
Yeah.
So good.
He says maybe the two of us can just go get a farm together.
Yeah.
That is great.
George quietly admits that deep down he knew it would never happen, but that his friend liked hearing about it so much that he too stupidly started believing that the dream could come true.
Oh, George has really turned around in my books.
You're a fan of George?
Yeah. Josh, you would agree?
Yes. Well, I was always thinking he's heart of gold
Danny DeVito. Well, who did we settle on?
for George.
Someone.
Jake Gyllenhaal. Is that George?
Edward Norton.
Edward
Okay,
Norton.
yeah.
Yeah.
Put Edward Norton in that role.
Nice.
Yeah. A good guy.
So Lenny's run off. George sneaks off to let the others discover the body with Candy, so he's able to maintain his own innocence from the crime because he's worried people will say, you did it with Lenny. So he comes in later and it's the last one, and it looks like he was a long way from the... He's like, what's going on here? They're like, oh, Lenny's done this. And he's like, what? Upon hearing the news, Curly demands that they find Lenny and kill him.
Another lynching.
Curly grabs...
Probably one that's a bit more deserving. To be honest.
And Curly can't even shoot him because he's only got one hand that works.
Oh, that's Candy.
That's Candy.
Oh.
Curly is very happy to shoot someone.
No, but that's Curly's, his hand's been broken.
Oh, actually,
yeah,
you're right.
true.
Yeah.
There's two one-handed men.
Yeah,
Yeah.
together.
Yeah, together. You hold the trigger. I got it. Well, Curly grabs his shotgun and says he'll shoot Lenny in the stomach and make him die a slow and painful death. One of the farmers, Carlson, Joshua Jackson, the one that shot the dog earlier, he goes into his bunk and looks for his Luger pistol. But it's
yeah, he wants to shoot stuff.
oh yeah,
That's his kink.
he's so into
Yeah,
it.
he's spiteful.
Yeah.
He goes to look for his Luger pistol, but it's gone, and he says Lenny must have stolen it. So they go after him with one gun. They've got a shotgun. All of the men, including George, go looking for Lenny, whilst Old Man Candy, the other John Candy. John Candy stays behind with the body. Lenny, we cut to him arriving at the bush, waiting to meet George. The river is as beautiful and still as it was at the start of the novel. It's actually described in a very similar way. So we've come full circle.
Yeah.
Bit of symbolism
But
there.
a lot of shit's gone down.
Yeah, a lot of stuff has happened. Lenny speaks to himself and tells himself if George is mad, he can go to a cave and he'll leave George alone to live his own
Yeah,
life.
because that's what he said to do.
He says, I'll just do that. I don't do that. And then, this is a quote from the book, and then out of Lenny's head there came a little old fat woman. Lenny is now
Does
hallucinating.
this fat woman have a name?
Yes. Actually, there is another female role here.
Fat woman.
Fat woman.
Fat woman in Lenny's head.
Maybe
Delightful.
this can be Jack Black. I really want him in my movie. He's got range. No, Lenny is hallucinating and he sees his Aunt Clara.
Oh, that's the fat woman. Okay.
She begins to berate him in Lenny's own voice. So basically, he's talking to himself. She's telling him off for letting George down again. After arguing with her, she disappears, and instead, a giant rabbit appears, also hallucinated. It says, "Tend rabbits, you crazy bastard. You forget 'em and let 'em go hungry." The rabbit tells Lenny that George will beat him and leave him when he finds him, but Lenny denies this and starts yelling out George's name for help. The real George arrives on the scene ahead of the other men because he knew where he was going to be, and Lenny is surprised that George isn't actually mad at him.
George is sympathetic. But I'm also just wondering, I just want to back up a second.
Yes.
In the movie, how did they do the rabbit and fat Auntie Clara?
I think it was.
Was it
Yeah, I can't look. It's
like
been
a
so long.
ghostly see-through.
Well, they put like just a filtery, grainy.
Yeah.
I know it wasn't like in Donnie Darko. It wasn't someone in a suit, but
Yeah.
I'm not sure. I can't remember. It's been so
Imagine
long.
if it was the Donnie Darko.
And it's berating him. Oh,
You thought you were going to tend to rabbits?
and you're not as cute as I thought.
Okay, sorry, keep going.
So
George isn't angry.
No, George isn't mad at him. Lenny even asked George to give him hell like he usually does when he makes a mistake. But George, he just pretends to be mad and mutters woodenly, "If I was alone, I could live so easy," basically going through the motions of pretending to be mad at him. Lenny is surprised but still offers to go off in the hills, but George says, "No, I want you to stay with me here." He reminds Lenny that they are different because unlike every other worker, they stick together.
That's nice.
George gets Lenny to take off his hat and feel the cool breeze along the river.
Oh, you've taken off your
Is
hat,
he
Lenny.
preparing him for death because he knows that they're coming? Like he's just giving him one last final sweet moment?
Just got the survivor thing.
My Survivor reference.
Oh, I
You've taken off
missed
your hat,
that.
Lenny.
I'm sorry. I'm too deep in it. Oh, that would have been so good if I got that.
The listeners, hopefully, you'll get it.
Oh, and I talked over it. Oh,
Sorry.
that was really good.
Thanks. But Lenny, come on. You've taken off your hat.
Taking off your
The men are coming with their
Now we're going to
shotguns.
have a divorce.
That was perfect.
Thanks.
So he gets him to take his hat off, feel the cool breeze. George hears the other men are approaching, but calmly tells Lenny to look across the river so he can see their dream
Really
farmhouse,
sad.
as George will describe it to him one last time. As he starts to tell Lenny about the farmhouse, with Lenny looking straight ahead, George, whilst Lenny's looking across the river, pulls the Luger gun quietly from his side pocket. Lenny didn't take the gun. George himself did whilst the others were discovering the body. George keeps describing the farm to Lenny as he intently listens on. Lenny is confused and says, "I thought you was mad at me, George." George replies, "No, Lenny, I ain't mad. I ain't never been mad, and I ain't now. That's a thing I want you to know." George raises the gun as he hears the voices getting closer and closer, and Lenny begs him, "Let's do it now. Let's get that place now, the farm." George says, "Sure, right now. I got her. We got her." And with that, he raises the gun for the final time, steadies himself, and shoots Lenny in the back of the head. Lenny dies instantly.
That is such an act of compassion.
No.
Did you say no, or
No,
you
I said I know.
Yeah.
People actually also challenge this because it possibly encourages euthanasia.
Oh, really?
Yeah, some people complain about.
I thought you were going to be
Right,
there's those
okay.
guys going,
I can see that
a
point.
shot in the back of the head wouldn't kill you straight away. You got to go up underneath the jawline. You know those guys at school used to be like, no, couldn't. If you want to actually kill someone, you can't punch him in the nose. It takes it right up. Yeah.
That's such a good infestation.
So
so many of those guys.
Welcome to the OC, bitch.
Yeah.
It's the same dude.
So I'm
But-
so sorry to say, Lenny.
Sorry to interrupt. I get the argument about euthanasia, but also this is a fictional world, and we're following a story, and we're looking for themes here as well, and we're looking for callbacks.
Yeah.
And I think this is a perfect callback to the thing with the dog, Candy and the dog.
And it
works
also promotes
perfectly.
discussion. The book is not saying this is the right thing to do. It's saying
Yeah.
this is what happened, and then we
yeah.
can discuss is it good, is it bad, and all the grey area in between.
Yeah. Yeah,
Which
I
people
totally
forget these
agree.
days.
And that's the debate around euthanasia as
Yeah.
well.
Yes.
You talked about something. You have that opinion. It's like, no, that's not how it...
Yeah.
But also,
Just bringing
if
it
we
up
look
doesn't
at-
mean...
Yeah.
If we take euthanasia out of the question, the intention that George had was of extreme compassion.
Oh,
for
absolutely.
his friend.
Imagine that decision too. Would it be?
Yeah,
So, you know-
heartbreaking, but so compassionate.
So Lenny's last moments could have been a bunch of angry men all yelling at him and then killing him and doing something, maybe torturing him, or his best friend doing it without him even
Him knowing.
Yeah, talking
Yeah.
about a nice thing, the farm and the rabbits, and then doing it that way. And so
No.
you go, well, this is the right decision in this. Of those two, if they're the only two options, George has done the right thing.
So it's just a tiny bit more. So the other men arrive, and Carlson, the owner of the Luger, questions George, who lets them believe that he wrestled the gun from Lenny and then shot him with it.
Right.
That's the
Because
story
George
it
is
tells.
kind of like risking
Yeah.
a little bit here too, because they'll be angry at George.
Yeah, so he just says, basically they say, oh, did he have the gun and you wrestled it? And he said, yes, that's what happened. The leader of the farming group, Slim, is the only one who seems to understand. He says, you had her, George. I swear you had her. He knows he saved Lenny from a much more painful and brutal death. Just like Candy told George he shouldn't have let another man shoot his dog, George didn't allow the group to lynch and hurt his best friend. Of course, by this point, George is absolutely numb and can barely speak. The last line of the book is Carlson watching George and Slim as they walk away, and he says to Curly, now what the hell you suppose is eating them two guys?
But he'll never understand.
Yeah,
that.
those guys will never get it.
Yeah. There's so much about friendship in this.
Yeah.
And about male friendship as well, which is something that's often not really talked about.
Yeah.
And male companionship, which is really sweet. And yeah, that George and Slim had a compassionate nature, and so that's why in the end they were friends.
Yeah, he got
other
it.
two, they
he
don't
understood
get
it.
it.
Because, and also he'd explained about Lenny and
even though Lenny might have been not as intelligent or cerebral as the others, he was a bigger man because he could have that friendship with George, even though he killed a woman.
yeah, I know that's terrible. But
Yeah.
the other guys have just arrived and they just see a dead man who's like killed a woman. That's all they see. They see a murderer dead. But then Slim understands that it was beyond his capacity.
Yeah.
It didn't mean
It is amazing that none of the guys working with him knew that he was, incapable of, not rational thought, but like like so whatever disability he had, whatever learning disability he had, wouldn't them not going, oh, he's a
He
simple
couldn't control
person.
himself, yeah.
So
But there you go.
Heavy.
It's very, very heavy. Shed a
But
little
so
tear myself
many-
when I read it. Very, very.
So many little lessons to be learnt and little themes. I like those books like that.
and also it's been like obviously influential of a lot of other stories after that. Like you going through it and it's like, oh yeah, there is other stuff. There was one that we picked up on before, and yeah.
Yeah, and it's frequently referenced, parodied, that kind of stuff in popular culture.
Well, I like that I know it now.
There you go. Now, I always get
So-
you guys to review it out of 5.
Out of 5,
Yep.
oh,
Based on what you heard here today.
I loved it. I thought I'm going to give it
I really loved it.
4 dead dogs out of 5.
You just couldn't quite kill that fifth dog.
I think I'm going to go 4 dead dogs out of 5. It's rating highly because while we've been talking about it and you've been describing it, I haven't thought about anything else.
Yeah.
And that's like tricky for me. I'll often have my mind on something else,
you know
but
what
I've
else?
been completely engrossed by it.
Not that many pages.
It's not very big.
No, a lot happens. It's very, I will say it's quite a very easy read too.
100
Is it?
120 pages.
Yeah, that's a lot of bulk. That's a lot of bang for your buck.
A lot happens in it.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed it. I would give it a 5 out of 5. I thought it was fantastic.
The reason why I've rated it down 1 point is just for the animal cruelty and
It's
the
very-
violence
and I find that very
against
sad
women.
too.
But also,
Two
these
people died
movies, they have to have darkness. These books, they have darkness in them
course.
for us to feel things. So,
Got to be conflict.
yeah.
Otherwise,
yeah.
there's no resolution.
Not everything is how to lose a guy in 10 days.
Thank goodness.
I was about to say, but it should be. 2 different opinions there. No, I really liked it, and I would like to put The Grapes of Wrath, his other famous novel, now on my to-do list on this show, just because I would like to see if I enjoyed his writing, Steinbeck's writing style. Yeah, it's very easy to read. It was actually, I read somewhere that it's, and then reading back, I was like, that makes sense. Possibly originally was going to be a play. So there's a lot of
Yeah.
dialogue back and forth here.
And you could see it
Which is very
working
good.
on the stage as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that does bring us to the end of the show. Thank you so much for joining me. For those at home, you can get in contact with me anytime, bookcheatpod@gmail.com if you want to email me or suggest a book. You know, if you've got some sort of exam or something coming up, even your reading list for next year, let me know. I'll try and tackle it for you. You can follow us at BookCheatPod on all the social medias. Do the usual stuff. But until next week, I will say thank you for listening and goodbye.
Thanks, Dave.
Thank you.